let me open our karakia. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga. Kia mā kia kia mā karakara ki whai. Kia kia tātukura, te o ki hoka, te hau, te hei, me uri ura. So I'm the chairperson of the Waitai Community Board, which covers this area, Linwood Ward, plus Coastal-Burwood-Linwood. So that's pretty much the entire east side of Christchurch. And I'm sorry that we are all here tonight. I think it's only fair to acknowledge that we shouldn't have to be, that it's not good enough, and that it is just totally unfair that the neighbours of the plant and the wider city have to go through this. And this is my community. I live down the road, Rabbit Street. I work in Waitai, and until I got scarred, fresh from surgery, I did judo and rolling. And my barometer for how bad the stench is that if I open my toilet window and it smells worse, then I know that something is wrong. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who's had that experience, and it's pretty unpleasant to say the least. Tonight we're going to hear from the Mayor, Phil Major, and the CEO, Mary Richardson, and her staff. And then I will facilitate a Q&A for local residents so that you can get the answers to your questions that you have. And throughout this time this evening, I just want to ask that everything that is said, you can be passionate, you can be angry, you can express frustration, be honest, that's all good, but just do it in a way that is respectful and that we can all be proud of in the morning. Just want to deal with problems, but we want to do it in a respectful way. And before I hand over to the Mayor, I just want to point that if you need to go to the toilet, there's toilets out this way, and Raya can point you the right way. Run for Raya from probably the care centre. Which way is the toilet, Raya? Just down this way. And if you need to, if there's an earthquake or something, then there's the exits are very clearly labelled. So, without further ado, here's the Mayor Phil Major.
Thank you, Paul. Yes, the Chair, we not having the apology, and I'm wondering if there is an apology from the CEO and the Chair of ECAN.
We do, I believe, and thanks for reminding me, we do have a few people from ECAN here. So representatives from ECAN, can you please put your hands up? So we have staff and one of the local councillors from ECAN. We do have other elected representatives here too. So we have board members and councillors. If you can put your hands up, just so everybody knows. So most of the Waitai board, you've got your local councillor Jan Johansson, and you've got Nathaniel, who's Jardine, who's the new councillor for Heathcote, and you've got Mark Peters down there, who's the councillor for Thornley.
My point there is that the CEO and the Chair of ECAN are very important people. They are their responsibility in this is paramount up the top. They should be here.
But that's noted, and we can't do anything about that now, so we do need to keep moving. So, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you very much. Tēnā koutou katoa and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today for this update. I really appreciate you taking the time out on relatively short notice. First and foremost, I want to apologise and acknowledge what you're going through. The council has amped up our processes now so that in the future we can let you know earlier if there's an increased chance of voter. I can't promise we'll always get it right, but we'll certainly do our best and better than we've done to date. I want to also acknowledge that it's been a long road since the fire 5 years ago, and I recognise the hardship it's caused, especially for those residents living so close. One thing that's paramount is the well-being of you. And it's fine for me to stand up here and say technical this and technical that, but it's important that we recognise this problem affects people differently. And to that end, we will be setting up a community response group, which you'll hear a bit more about later. In my view, it took far too long between the fire, the decision to demolish it, and the change to activated slope. Yes. Unfortunately, we had to work with insurers and the company that caused the fire. We're all pointing fingers at each other. that caused significant delays. And until it's built, we're working on a knife edge, which you'll hear more about as well. I understand it's working at around about 105%. There is no room there is no redundancy. We can't have hiccups like we've just had, otherwise we'll be in the same boat. So we've got to keep going so we can ensure we can keep flushing our toilets and stuff like that, because it's all very well to say, no more, what colour are we going to do then? So we can't shut it. So unfortunately, the plant is very susceptible at the moment. It's susceptible to a number of factors. When there is significant rainfall, or not enough sun, or one of the aerators, 16, I think, might be 18 of them now, that run 24/7, if one of those breaks down, it just flicks it the other way. And occasionally they do break down. And when all the holes in the trees line up, that's when we get the problem we've got. To be clear, it is a very temporary system, and the guys have done a fantastic job down there to patch up what we had to get it going for as long as it has. As you're aware, we're using a jet boat now to help raise oxygen levels in the pond. And different to what Don Gould's got online, I am not water skiing behind the jet boat that's been towed by Victoria Kingstock. We're also dosing the ponds with hydrogen peroxide. So that makes a difference as well. Alongside that, the work on the rebuild of the plant has started, and they're working 6 days a week. Our decision to go with activated sludge rather than building back to the old standard was absolutely the right decision. We got $85 million from the insurance company to do this, and we had to put an extra number of millions of dollars in to go towards it, which made it far better. But it will mean we're building back better. And I remember talking to Paul a long time ago, how Mangere in Auckland had this problem, and then they put activated sludge in, and the problem went away and people started moving back. So, where are we? The result, it does work in Mangere, so it will work here. The result will be worth it, but I understand the waiting is unpleasant. I want to also address the issue of vibration I talked about at the council meeting today. Some people think that the building of the new plant is going to cause massive vibration. The only vibration that will happen is 1,400 stone columns that are going to be put in the ground to make the new system earthquake resilient. That will take about 2.5, we'll say 3 months of vibration putting it down. Other than that, it's just building a building. So there's not 2 years of vibration that some of you may think. It's just for a short time. So we've got to make sure that it stands up in case something bad happens. So I just wanted to clarify that point. Now I'm going to hand over to the experts who will talk you through what's happening in a lot more detail. And after that, our staff and me or anyone will be happy to answer any questions you have. So thank you once again for taking the time out of your day to be here. I'll hand over to Gavin. And once again, I'm really sorry that we find ourselves in the situation we're in. Thank you.
Very good, right. Gavin Hutchison, head of Three Waters. I'm here today with Gavin Tooze as the operations manager. So I'm just going to give you an overview of where the current state of the new project is going to take sludge and some of the work we're doing in the background to try and improve the situation. But firstly, on behalf of the staff of the facility, sorry this has occurred. The current plant that we have, which is temporary, is the mayor pointed out, is running at capacity. The ponds, unfortunately, have 3 of them have fallen over, which we call they've got no oxygen. So that's the cause of the owners working hard to reinstate those, and Adam will take you through a bit more detail on those. So the activated sludge plant, we are commissioning that in late 2027, and that commission will go through to early 2028. So we've still got a long way to go before the new plant is operational. So that shows that to avoid these situations happening again and improve what has happened over time is we need to put more resilience into those ponds. Those ponds traditionally haven't been required for treatment. They're taking quite a large load from the plant. So we are looking to put more mechanical aerators into the ponds to beef up so this doesn't occur again. Over the next 8 years, we do have a total of 280 million investment into the wastewater treatment plant. So it's not just activated sludge, we're upgrading and renewing large components from the how we handle the sludge through how we dry the sludge and biogas. So it's a significant investment. It's a large project, but the focus at the moment is to get these ponds healthy, so they're not causing any further odours, and most importantly, to stop this happening again. So I'd like to hand over to Adam, who will take you through some more detail.
Gavin, yes, just like to again pass on my apologies for the situation that we find ourselves in. I do feel for everything that's going on, and I hope that we do get there soon. What I'd just like to do is just take you through the events that led us up to where we are today, the recent odour event, and what we've got in place to try and prevent that happening again. So what I'll just run through is some of the background, a timeline, our preliminary understanding of the cause of the odour event that occurred last week, and what actions we're doing as an operations team to try and get us back on the steady keel and work going forward. So, very brief high-level overview. Back in November 21 was the trickling filter fire, as you can see from the photograph on the top right. In July 2022 was when we commissioned the temporary activated sludge plant. So that was using the existing assets that we had, the existing tanks, the existing pumps, the existing aerators to put the temporary activated sludge plant in, and that is still running. In April 2023, we added 16 aerators to pond 1 to convert it from a maturation pond to an oxidation pond. Apologies for the technical details. The maturation ponds were there because they only used to do the disinfection. Because we lost the trickling filters and the temporary activated sludge plant was not sufficiently large enough, we put the aerators on pond 1 to turn it into an oxidation pond to do some of the treatment for us. So, tiny little bit more background. The ponds were originally created in 1962 to provide sewage treatment for the city before they were changed to maturation ponds when the main CWTP was built. And since November 21, the fundamental purpose of the ponds has reverted from those maturation ponds back to the oxidation ponds. So, staff are currently focusing on managing the current odour event. The odour mitigation plan that we have for 2025, we've updated that, and we've made a new one for 2026. And my staff and myself have undertaken preliminary data collection to understand what caused the current event. The key aspect that we need to acknowledge that the ponds are a biological system. The same as the activated sludge plant, we rely on biology to do the wastewater treatment for us. So the two main factors that alter the pond health, so the odour did come from the pond health, is algae and dissolved oxygen are the main two factors. If the algae is nice and high, or the oxygen is nice and high, then the ponds are healthy and it doesn't result in the generation of any odours. So the two factors that can affect that is loading to the ponds and environmental factors. So loading to the ponds, so that's where we take all the sewage from the city and comes into the treatment plant. That can vary, that can go up and down. We also get load from the treatment plant onto the ponds. Again, technical list. If the performance of the activated sludge plant varies a little bit, it can pass more load to the ponds. Or if we have to do maintenance activities where we have to shut parts of the plant down to do maintenance on it, that can also pass load to the ponds. The second is the environmental factors, which is the weather, temperature, rainfall, sunlight. It varies throughout the year and varies from day to day. So staff have collected all that data. I must stress that this is preliminary. None of this data has had the opportunity to be validated yet, and it's still going. And these are just our initial theories on what caused this event. So, what we tried to do to try and prevent this happening again, we need to understand what happened. So, what we've done is we've looked at what's been happening this summer and compared to previous summers to try and rule out what happened. So, most of the slide layouts are the same. This is what happened this summer, this is what happened last summer, and this is what happened the summer before. So this is the loading that was going to the treatment plant, and it showed that the amount of load going into the CWTP wasn't significantly different than it was previously. However, what we did have is we had a spike of load going into the treatment ponds, which you can see here. So this is just covering the time frame from October to January. And as you can see here on this day, on the 16th of January, we had almost doubling or tripling of the load that was going into the observation ponds, which we believe is one of the significant contributing factors to that. The reason why we believe that happened is the temporary activated treatment plant struggled a little bit. Over the Christmas period, a lot of trade, a lot of industry, they shut down, we cleaned the tanks. So what we see in the treatment plant is a sudden spike in load, and then a drop in load as there's no industry. And the temporary treatment plant just doesn't like that change in variation. The treatment filters were quite robust to it, whereas our temporary activated plant is just not large enough. Thank you. The other one is the temperature of the ponds. So again, this is this summer, last summer, summer ago, and you can see the temperatures this year weren't significantly different to the year before. But, sorry. So the temperature of the ponds, so the weather is slightly different. So this is taken from the Met Service website, starting from the 1st of January all the way through to the 1st of February. What will happen on the 7th to the 11th of February is a warm period. So you can see that the temperature up here is high 20s, low 30s. And then a couple of days later, the weather changed and the temperature dropped to 17 degrees. But also at night, the temperature dropped down to single figures, down at 5 degrees Celsius. It's also coincided with a very significant wet weather event. And I believe this is one of the key fundamentals that cause the oxidation ponds to struggle. In terms of rainfall, as you saw from that last graph, this is this summer, last summer, and 2 summers ago, and you can see this summer there was significantly more rain that arrived in this period than we had experienced in previous years. And this was reflected in sustained higher flows through the treatment plant. So the ponds are experiencing more flow as it comes through. As you can see, the amount of flow coming through the ponds this year is higher than last year and the year before. In terms of sunlight, pretty consistent this year compared to last year, so we didn't really have that as a key factor. However, in terms of dissolved oxygen, like I say, if the ponds have got lots of dissolved oxygen, they're happy. So when the dissolved oxygens drop, you start getting anaerobic conditions and you start getting regeneration. So this summer, last summer, 2 summers ago, but this is the data from pond 1, so blue is pond 1, orange is pond 2, and green is pond 2B. So as you can see from there, the greens and the orange aren't significantly different to the way that they were before. But what is key this year, in this event, is pond 1, the dissolved oxygen levels are very low. So what we believe happened is, with the high load coming in, the weather fluctuation, it meant pond 1 and 2 struggled with low dissolved oxygen, and that meant it didn't treat as much, which resulted as more load passing through into ponds 2A and 2B. So if you pass more load to the ponds, it can affect the algae. The algae is there, it's a natural process. It's like a plant. If you have lots of nice food for it and you have lots of sunlight, it grows and it also generates oxygen. That oxygen is a dissolved oxygen level that we need in the ponds, which is good. And as you can see, from this summer, the pond algae levels have just been consistently lower than they were last year, maybe slightly higher than they were 2 years ago. The one thing that you notice here is this year, dissolved oxygen levels are low. We have instances of odour, whereas last year there wasn't significant instances of odour in the summer, but that also coincided with high midge levels. So it's the midges that eat the algae as well, where you get the big midge population booms. So that's the summary of what we actually believe happened. And what we've done is we've produced our 2026 odor mitigation action plan. We're about to share that with ECAM once it's finished drafted up today, tomorrow. And this is just a list of the actions. So for the oxidation ponds, we've got lots of actions that we need to work through. If it's in bold, there's activities that we're doing anyway in order to try and look at the ponds, make sure we control them to the best of our can. If it's not bold, those are the new ones that we're going to be doing in the picked up. So as you can see on the top line, we've got the ability to alter the flow past in the ponds. So some ponds get higher load, some get lower load, we've got the ability to flex between them. So we'll be doing that and just walk all the way through as best we can. Use of the jet boat, we haven't had to use it before, so that's gone in, so we're happy with that one in. Next one, increased monitoring of pond health indicators. Again, we were doing that anyway. The next one is hydrogen peroxide, which was touched on by one of my co-presenters. So that's due to arrive Thursday, and we're going to start this with hydrogen peroxide on Thursday. So lots of activities that we're already doing and we're going to be getting on with as well. This is the second half of that. So the first half is all the stuff we're going to do on the observation ponds. We're also going to be doing some other activities which cover across the rest of the site. Another activity for the observation ponds, which is a shorter, medium term. We're also going to be doing some further work on the temporary activated sludge and further on the whole site. Again, if it's in mould, it's stuff we're already doing. More activity we're already doing. So key takeaways and next steps, what we know. So the early event is linked to biological pond health and influenced by a combination of loading environmental conditions by single failure. So as was touched on by one of my colleagues, whole lines of slices of Swiss cheese and they just happen to line up. We just happen to have the wet conditions, we happen to have the algae levels go low, we happen to have the loading go high. What we're doing about it, we've got the open mitigations in place, so some of those are already in, we're going to be working on the others. All my staff are still focused on trying to work out how to get these ponds back into the performance as they are and get them to be as stable as possible. We're continuing to look at all the data to try and understand what happened in this event and incorporate all those learnings into future management plans. So there will be an opportunity for questions afterwards. It is a balance of trying to get technical information from everyone to try and determine what happened. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam, and Kevin. And I want to acknowledge that Adam and his team have to work in this as well to try and solve the problem. So, to running the wastewater treatment plant on duct tape and number 8 wire. So, thank you again for that, Adam, and to acknowledge that you're working in this and some of you and your employees also live around here. So the next session we're having is a Q&A, and ratings to Councillor McDonald as well. But next session is a Q&A. So this is for locals, and by locals I mean people who live in Bromley or this side of Aranui, so this side of Pages Road. If there are other people here who have questions, we'll get you in a second, man. Other people who have questions, we'll try and get to those, but the priority is on locals and neighbours of the plant who have put up with very high concentrations of hydrogen sulfide and other things. And just want to remind you that this will be, make sure that we can be proud of the way we spoke to each other in the morning. And we will, if we do not answer your questions, we cannot answer questions, I should say. Someone is there anybody here who will take notes and that people can approach to say, hey, my question wasn't answered?
Is the live recording?
There is a recording, but and people may not necessarily want to also have their questions answered. So I'm going to point
we've got
to Chris.
Gary, do you want to put your hand up?
We've got Gary. So Gary, stand up, Gary. Thank you, Gary. If you have a question that you don't want to ask publicly, or you feel your question wasn't adequately addressed, please talk to Gary afterwards, or you're welcome to come to me or one of your other local elected representatives. Okay, so we have a question down here from the back. Matt, would you like the microphone? 4 questions. Are they related questions? Yes. Well, I'm going to come down to you so that everybody can hear. Would you consider the level of stench acceptable?
Not at all.
No.
Residents in Bromley and surrounding suburbs are regularly exposed to this air pollution. What actions would you expect to be taken if your own family was in this position?
So if it was our own families, we would expect that the team at the plant would act immediately to reduce the odour which is what we've tried to do. But to answer your question, what we would do if it was our families, we would expect the team at the plant to act immediately to try and reduce the odour, which they have done. What I would also expect, which we failed on this time, was to communicate immediately to let people know that the odour was expected to go up and how long we expected it to stay at that level. It wouldn't have made any difference, but it would mean that you knew.
Council placed in this house speech was to continue for one more year.
What are the consequences?
Consequences does council face and this house speech was to continue for one more year.
Yes. What are the consequences? Consequences it continues for a year.
Speaking of field, to be clear, we don't expect the odour, the current odour to continue. That's why we're acting and putting these additions in place.
So nothing, is that what you're saying? No consequences of this?
No, that's not what we're saying. We're saying we are not expecting the odour to continue.
We all hope not.
So we'll just hold on a sec, we'll come to your question. Just please, if we want people's questions to be answered, if we want people's questions to be answered, we need to have one person speaking at a time. We only have one, and other people are talking over you, ma'am, so we'll come back to you.
How much of the $85 million insurance settlement has been spent today and on what?
So that's how much of the $85 million insurance settlement has been spent to date and on what?
Thank you.
I haven't got the exact numbers, but to date, we've spent close to 20 million. I can get the details of what that has been spent on, but it's all been spent on the fire-related work.
Fire-related work?
So that's obviously recovery after the fire. It's the work done to design to implement the temporary solution.
So $20 million has been spent and the problem is still a problem? Thank you.
All right, we have a question from Victoria over here.
Yeah, I have a problem that we know when the rain comes, there is a problem. So we've got it in summer, so look out for winter because we're not going to have any sun. So how is it that you guys can preempt the rain? You know, we've got weather forecasts so that we don't have this coming again.
So
it just seems to be.
It might be paraphrased. We know that changes in weather conditions cause an increase in smell, and why is it that it hasn't been predicted, and what's going to change?
Yeah, because you know you should know the weather patterns.
Yeah, so with the observation ponds, there's two main modes in which they operate. In summer, there's lots of biological activity in the ponds, and there's aerobic activity, which is the algae, which generates lots of dissolved oxygen, which is what failed at this event. And then there's lots of bacteria that's breaking down, which is anaerobic. Well, in summer, the algae sort of takes over, they win the battle, they have lots of dissolved oxygen, keeps it high. When it goes to winter,
and rainy season,
the temperature is a lot colder, so the bacteria in the pond slows down. So the anaerobic bacteria is quite slow, but then there's also no algae. So it sort of goes into a settled state where it goes into with wet rain. With the rain that comes in, sometimes if there's lots and lots of rain, it goes through. It has like a flushing effect through the treatment plant, and it washes it out, and there's no difficulties. The difficulty is just what happened here with all those incidences lining up. So just because it's going to rain doesn't necessarily mean it's going to result in
So, but my understanding of what Adam just said is that there are two phases that the plant operates well in: summer and winter phase. It's when it smells, it's in a transition, and when you get rapid changes in temperature and other environmental things, that'll smell, and that doesn't usually happen to the degree that's happened this year. Is that correct, Dylan? Yeah. So that's pretty much a summary. Okay, more questions? You, sir.
Hi. So I live 200 meters from the boundary on Carter's Road, and we essentially have a fog, like gas, sitting over us. To me, this is as much as a construction issue as it is an environmental health emergency. What are you doing to the people who are suffering? I have headaches every day. I feel sick every day. My daughter goes to bed with a bucket because she feels sick. My son has sinus problems. We have people in our neighbourhood who have dizziness, light sensitivity. This is bigger than, and it's great to have all these updates, but all your updates don't tell us what you're going to do to the people who are suffering physically. There was the comments last week saying, oh, you can get a mental health sort of checkup. It doesn't do anything. There's people physically suffering in our community, and there wasn't one post out like that. All your posts, although great, said a lot of stuff without saying anything to anybody.
So to summarise, what is the council going to do to help with the physical health effects of the people who are living closest to the plant?
So we are, the mayor, councillors and community boards have asked us to actually form a team that can actually, interagency team that can look at what mediations and what things we can put in place. That team has been formed, and we're going to be working with other agencies to be able to actually work out what options and what are the best options. And we expect to be able to come back with those quite rapidly.
Does that include financial as well? Because we have to pay for the health costs.
That's something that will be in the mix. But
I mean, everyone's got kids.
yeah.
Can I just add on that? Will that involve testing around the community to see how far these gases and other things are spreading throughout and how many people are affected?
We have that data.
So the community is regularly tested and like at a wider radius than just the boundary of the treatment plant.
We do have 5 monitors spread around the plant. They monitor the gases that we look at daily.
And for those people asking about, so Mary has said that the financial stuff will be in the mix, but for those people who are struggling financially with medical and related needs, I do encourage you to talk to Gary and have that noted down specifically. So otherwise we won't be able to get back to you, the council won't be able to get back to you, and there may be some assistance available through other mechanisms in the short term.
Can I be really clear about that? When I said it'll be in the mix, it'll be in the mix of things that we'll be looking at. We are not this evening making a commitment to, we want to know what the best options are, look at those, and so it'll be in the mix. So I'm not committing to financial assistance tonight.
Yeah.
There will be the council approval.
Yeah, and there are various, and so I'm community chair, we don't have a large budget or anything. I'm just saying that there's potential so that you can be pointed towards other ways of getting assistance. Johnny.
I probably take 4 years to build the next stadium, but it takes 5 years to fix our problem. So the stadium brings in revenue for what roughly is the problem. So that's the question that a lot of people are asking to ask.
So in case not everybody heard, Johnny's asked how come it takes 4 years to build a massive stadium and 5 years to build a wastewater treatment plant, which is a question I think.
It's actually more than 5 years. 5 years today.
The stadium has actually taken 15 years to do. Far too long, I might say. Now, you've got to remember that, as Gavin said before, the activated sludge thing will be finished by the end of 2027, which is not that far away. The other stuff is the box. Right, the box that's going to flow all the air into it for the activated sludge will be finished by the end of 2027. There is then a lot of work. We've got this Rolls-Royce box, but if we haven't got all the other downstream stuff that makes the Rolls-Royce box work as well as it should, there's a lot more money going to be spent, and probably 20, 30 million going to be spent on different parts of the wastewater treatment plant to make it flow better, for one of the better words. So it's not, the evacuated sludge plant will be finished in a couple of years. It took probably taken a year to design it, at least, get tender, all that sort of thing, tenders come in, the guys are into it. But there is a lot of other stuff that has not been probably that needs to be done to tie up with the activated slopes, because we've never had it before. So we've got to make sure, spend the money here, you've got to make sure it works all the way through.
Well, can I ask you a question before you go?
Can we, because you've already had a question.
Okay, just one.
Can you ask for?
I can okay.
Yeah.
As long as it's
We'll try and come back to you, but you're also welcome to approach Bill, and I'm sure he'll answer. I'll go to Bruce and then I'll come to you then.
My question is, as Bill was saying before, the time frame that they've got here to get that part finished is really quick compared with the composting part that the crack was had to put up for that for 15 years. But that's not my question. My question is council planning. Back in the 1960s when the ponds were being built, I was living in Breezer Road, so I saw them being built. And at that stage, Christchurch had planned the second sewage plant at Hallsville. Now, there are not many people that know anything about that. About 20 odd years ago, I was told that by a Hallsville resident that the council sold off all the land they had put aside for the sewage plant out there. So if we had another sewage plant in the Greater Christchurch, the problem here could be alleviated by diverting sewage to another plant. So we have 10-year plans put up by the City Council. I would say they might as well say they're 5-minute plans, because in the last 10 years, they've done nothing about upgrading the sewage.
Bruce, what's your question?
My question is, why did they stop building the second plant, and why haven't they upgraded the feed pipes that come from the Preston's area and stuff into the sewage plant? Those pipes were put in the early 60s. I can remember them being put in, so we're still putting probably 3 or 4 times the population through a same pipe.
The answer is that nobody here knows the answer, and so we'll have to come back to you. Right?
That's really strange. I've asked that 3 times at the CLG meeting, and I still haven't got the answer.
So Gary will know your question back, and we'll come back to you. So, ma'am, you have a question?
Mine's a very simple question. The council is well known for not doing a damn thing until complaints come in. Why? And this is the same with this. This is huge. And as a community, it's not just the sewage, it has been the composting plant. So we've suffered for more than even 5 years.
15.
And I bought my house here before any of these problems, and now it's devalued. I still pay the same rate. Nobody wants to buy a house in this area. So why does it have to be complaints for action?
One of the things, a couple of things I'll answer. One of the things which I'll take on the chin, we'll take on the chin, this event. Why did we wait till it was smelling and everyone's going to Zoo say, we should be looking at our figures, which we will look at more, and say, oh, the pond is a wee bit bad now, this is a month ago, it's a little bit worse now. Hello everyone, there's a chance that the way the numbers are tracking, we're going to be in trouble, and we need to front foot that, rather than us standing here, you guys dying in smell, and us saying, oh, I have a problem. That's not fair, because we've got to front foot it if we can, if we get the information for that. I'll just tell you a story about the OPP. Way back when I first became a councillor, it was decided that the buildings were knackered, and it was decided that we'd do them up, and it'd be 20 million to do it up. It came back at 40 million, and I said, why are we spending 40 million on something that only had about another 12 years resource consent left in its life? And I said, right, if we're going to spend this money and build a new one, we're better off to take it somewhere else. And that's what happened. I'm very proud of that it's gone. And this will be good when it's finished. So, and I'm very sorry that it's smelling, and we've just got to look at ways that we can let you know. Sadly, this problem could, I want to say it will, could happen again, pull the holes in the cheese line up. Now, the guys are done, the way I look at it, we had all sorts of trouble after the fire, there's massive smell. And I'm not saying there hasn't been any odour since, but this is the first real big blow up, so to speak, that we've had in the last 2 years. If we can keep things under control somehow, for the next 2 years, we'll be into the activated sludge thing. So, I'm working on it. So, yeah. So,
Oh, shut up.
Can we just have one person speak at a time, and please, look, we need to keep it civil, and if you want to talk to each other, please go outside, and talk to each other there. It's one person at a time, we're trying to get around as many people as possible. I do want to say about this question that Phil just raised.
Yes, you go again.
Yeah, my man, this is that, who can tell me what the best run city in the world was between 1993 and 2003, multi-award winning? It was Christchurch, City. And at that time, at the end of that time, we decided, the powers that be decided that we would, it's like, imagine I am the council. The powers that be came along and they said, oh, we've got 2 arms, you don't need 2 arms. You've got 2 ears, you don't need 2 ears. You don't need kidneys, you don't need 2 kidneys, we get rid of a kidney. That all that redundancy, the ability to respond to crises was removed. And here we are with an issue that we are struggling to respond to, even though we knew it was pretty inevitable. The way that our local democracy has been removed to be cost efficient and not people efficient, to respond to the needs of numbers rather than the needs of human beings. That's a systemic problem that has happened at every level, and we can be the best government city in the world, and this is a major lesson that I hope that we will be able to learn. And it's not good enough. We shouldn't be here tonight, but we are. So back to Ben, you got a question down there?
Pretty much. I mean, I've been here my whole life, which is only like 30. But like, whenever you have these issues prior to this life, which is fine, you're getting stories about, oh, we're so sorry that this dramatic events happen. It is sorry for the past 5 years where it smells all of the time, but it hasn't smelled bad enough in the whole city to smell it now. You're sorry? What about elderly people? Like, does anyone actually run door knocking to very elderly people in this area, checking their okay in their health? It's all good for me to get in my car, drive across town, take my dog away from the stench. What about people who can't leave? Like, what are you actually doing for this community apart from sorry, and oh, we're going to spend 30 million? No one cares about figures. People actually care when they're literally killed over for 3, 4, 5 days straight, nearly vomiting from coughing that much from the stench. People care they can't go outside, play with their kids, play with their dog, and they're washing it, open the bloody windows. It's like a third world country over here.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not joking. Bloody blood the other day, was coughing that much. What about someone who's 90 that can't leave? Like, honestly, what are you actually doing? Bring the GP, bring the mental health. Why don't you put the bill? If this was in our company, here's a $500,000 fine. Here's $1 million fine. And you're going, oh, the financials might not be in our budget. You should be forking out. You've been official in this area. It's been 5 years. And now you just give a shit with the whole city can smell.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think there's anything we can respond to tonight. We've heard what you've said. We'll take it on board and we'll look at respond to that. We are looking at doing some door knocking very soon to just check in on people, and got a team to that. But you know, there's nothing to actually that will mitigate what you said that I could say tonight. But we are going to look into this, and all we can do is apologise.
Well, I'm glad you actually owned it. There's nothing you can say to mitigate it.
Yeah, you've got to remember that 5 years ago, when the wastewater, when they caught fire, that was bad. That was real bad. But if it hadn't caught fire, we'd be stuck with those old aging treatment filters. So I shouldn't say it was lucky that it caught fire because you guys have been living in that smell. But if it hadn't caught fire, if it hadn't caught fire, we wouldn't have got the insurance payer, and we're heading in the right direction. And I'm so sorry that you guys are bearing the brunt of the smell, but yeah, I'm sorry for that. But our band will come good. It's coming. It's like OPP, it's gone. This will be better, I promise you.
I'll come to you next. I will point out that at that same end of that same time, when it's decided to lock all the arguments off, it was also decided not to upgrade the plant to the new style of plant like they have in Waitai City. And so, yes, this is partly a product of decisions made 20 years ago. But where we are now is the response to the fire. So we have to own and deal with that. Now, sir, question.
This one is aimed for Mary and the Mayor. With the current 2028 project that you have available right now, what accountability processes and penalties are in place for missed deadlines and poor performance by the council, contractors, tradies, everyone on this project?
The contract for the new one.
So we'll give him to answer that because he's managing the contract and he can go into the detail about the penalties.
Yeah, so the contract will have liquidated damages if the contract is late. I can't recall what they are, but they'll be many thousands a week for every week they are late.
And that's it.
That's the penalty on the contractor for the build of the new sludge.
Was that funds going to us then, is it, the fine?
And there are discussions that if I'm correct to be having with the contractor to see if there are ways that, while minimising the impact on the neighbours, that construction might be able to be sped up. Now, I've got a question down the back there.
Yeah, you mentioned about how you guys often and stuff like that. So why hasn't there been any consideration for other first plants and organisms to be put in there and cold resistant and times now about oxygen donation?
I think that might be for you, man.
So with the oxidation ponds, window maturation ponds, the way they used to do the disinfection was sunlight, deposition and natural eating by the other bacteria in the ponds. In the summer you got the algae and that's just where the biology changes. So in the summer you've got the algae which provides growth. There's no other plants or organisms that's been put in that's going to last throughout the year that's going to provide oxygen in there. The exception is on pond 1 where we put those 17 aerators in to mechanically put the oxygen in the water to provide that level of treatment. So yeah, there's no plants or vegetation we can put in to replace that.
And we had another question. Sue, you've been very patient. Sorry. Hold on a second. Can we just have one at a time? At the back there?
Locals only, but I'm sorry, Aaron Louis been dealing with this problem for the last 5 years as well. Just as bad as probably, I was only a resident probably a year ago, now a resident in Aaron Louis, and it's just as bad over there, to the point where at 5:30 this morning, I woke up to the stench of shit in my house.
Yep.
So why is it only Pacific Bromley and not the rest of the community?
I'm sorry, if it wasn't clear, I wanted to start with the people closest to the plant and then move out. So do you have another question that you would like to ask?
Oh, well, that one answered.
So, what can you repeat?
What about the Bromley communities that have been affected from this problem? Bromley received $200, give voucher for the problem to fix the problem. We can't bring our washing outside. We can't open our windows in Aaron Louis because it smells like shit.
That's right.
So, where's the rest of the accountability for the rest of the suburbs that are being affected?
So where is the accountability for the rest of the suburbs and the east side like Aaron Louis, the other side of Pages Road 2? That are affected.
Before that's answered, can I just add, I ran a post on Facebook on Friday, and this isn't just eastern suburbs who've been affected. I've put the poll up today, and I've got people from Hallswell, Riccarton, and all across the city.
That's right. So, but the thing is that this is for the people in the wider area. So in this area, and I don't even stuff. This is as you know, this has been an ongoing thing, and this is something that has been experienced by us a lot worse than elsewhere. This is a very temporary thing for people in the farthest reaches of the city.
I think it's temporary. Some people in the city centre who don't like to to do anything, she said, because this is.
So all I'm saying is it's a lot worse for you and your neighbours than it is for everyone else. So, and I'm not wanting to diminish the experience of anybody further out. So.
Saying it's worse in Bromley than it is in Aranui.
No, that's not, that's not what I was saying at all, sir. I was talking to him because he lives, just over that way. So going back to your question, the response over here was that we can't address that question tonight. So if you can, make that noted with Gary, we can get back to you, but we need to be able to have your contact details to do so. But it definitely is affecting, areas other than here. Totally agree. Yes, I'm not disagreeing with you.
Sounds like shit. What about like air purification for our homes, you know? It just seems like all you take shit at the time was probably to keep them happy, but what about the rest? You could South Riding, Aranui, all down the other side of Pages Road, right around the back, somewhere affected. You know, it's not just the what you call the people that are in the low decibel area. It's people are building all the houses on the hills as well. But
Yeah.
it must have been forgotten.
And
We're going to deal with this.
Yeah.
So you acknowledge that, and we're not going to ignore it, but we do have to move on to the next question. So I had a question with you, sir.
Yes.
Let's go first, and then we'll come back to you. You, sir?
Yeah, I was in the area here, just over the road. Reasons right. My question is, this new plant that you're sorting out now, how many years do you believe that this plant will last? That's my first question. I'll just tell them if I can. The second one is, we have that much building going on in the area, like in Brighton, all these new buildings that are going up around the place. Everywhere you go, they've got, they're buying up, they pour right the section, they're putting 4 or 5 houses. My question to that is to council, you're dishing out all these permits and that to build these new houses. I'm a retired builder, so I know a little bit about that. The thing is, with all these new houses that are getting built, the infrastructure, is this plant going to cope with everything that's going to exist? That's my question.
Yeah. So, is this plant future-proof? Is your question? Is it going to deal with increased density, population level, and is it already going to be future-proof, and is it going to deal with increased density?
Yeah, and is it going to, the new builds that are going on around here, is it going to handle that infrastructure that this plant is?
Right, pass it on to Kevin.
There's 2 parts to that, answer that question. So it's a 50-year design, but it's been designed that we can add other sections to it to further increase in future years. So what we build today will accommodate for at least 50 years, but the design is allowed us to come put further units onto the end of the activated sludge plant to further increase in the future.
It has been modelled for the population growth over the 50 years.
Yes, yeah.
And I believe there will also be capacity to add ultraviolet filters if we decide to do that in the future. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's space.
And can you hear? Is that all right now? So you sir in the back, and then you mentioned that over there. So, sir?
So is there anybody, I'm going to get this problem straight away, is there anybody actively monitoring each forecast and what's going to happen, so they can make a decision to what the
So you mean weather forecasts or?
Yeah.
they're taking forecast what we're going to do. It's going to get it far on the road. Anybody actually monitoring that? Projecting what's going to happen, so they can actually pull the gun and say, it's up, homes, or yes, more situations, or what is it?
Yeah, we do actively monitor the weather for obviously 2 reasons, obviously because we also do flood protection, stormwater, and so that information is available to the operations team at the plant.
You guys have the right, the environmentalists, up the ponds, out through the sunlight, going out to the lakes, or
We haven't got the ability to get flow straight from the CWTP all the way to the ocean outfall. There's just physically no connection with it. It has to go through the ponds. The time it takes for flow going into the ponds to coming out is between 17 and 30 days. We have looked at that as well. The options to reduce the odour is to lower the levels to less retention time so the flow goes through quicker. The danger of that is if we drop it down, you expose sludge around the edges, and we've measured some of the gases that come off when you expose the sludges, and they're quite significant. So it's this balancing game of holding flow in the ponds so that it has time to do the treatment, and then constantly not get too low so it then generates odours as well. So it's a really difficult balancing game.
So why didn't you have the hydrogen peroxide ready?
Because we just didn't expect this lineup of incidents to come at the same time.
Yeah, sorry, we've got, just before we go to the question down here, as Adam said earlier, it's like all the worst case scenarios have all lined up to produce this. And so I guess they may have been able to predict in the worst case that this might happen, but you might call it the perfect shitstorm. Everything has gone wrong for us to be here tonight. But we know that it can happen now. And so hopefully that means that next time it looks like happening will be here. Come here, down here.
I think one of the ones that makes sense not just things last month. But now, since I've heard what they're going to be doing with the drilling and the vibrations, now I'm worried about the house. We're only a couple of hundred meters away. What's going to happen with our houses?
Have you heard from the contractors? So I think the easiest way of dealing with this is to talk to Gary, because the contractors, if you live very close, you should have heard from them, and they are being extraordinarily careful to make sure that the vibrations are not impacting your house. If they are impacting your house, you need to let them know. So if you can note that down with Gary over there, we'll deal with that. Unless there's some other aspect that I have to cover off. Is that right? Okay. I had a question here, and then we'll have space for another couple of people who haven't already asked questions.
Going back to Vicky's statement about the hydrogen peroxide sitting there waiting, and you're saying that you haven't had any idea if you needed that. The last 5 years, I know personally, needing to have a visa at home, that this has been an issue every year over that time. It has always increased, especially around this week. I know that, it's my birthday. I can't have a birthday party at home. I've had to cancel Christmas every year. So you can't tell me that you haven't known that this wasn't something that could happen. There needed to be, it can't be an ambulance at the bottom of the hill. We need preventative measures there. This
lady, she has experienced stench on every year since the fire on her birthday, and so wonders why we haven't seen this coming. Why the council hasn't seen it coming.
So this has been a bit of a lesson for us in the way that it is. Like I say, we've got the big lessons, all the actions we're going to do. We're going to increase the monitoring they're going to do, and going to increase the actions that we've got available to us. We've got the community monitors set up that are around there, and I just have to focus on those more and be more proactive as to what they've done. Like I said, we've got a list of actions, we're doing the majority of them, but we're going to be doing more proactive ones on top of that as well.
All these things are paid for and
what I'd like to see, I was very lucky, I went down there to see the contractors last week, and the guy took me to the boss and said, show us a plan, show me what you do, because I'm more of a very good plan. The guy, another guy coming in, he had a whole lot of stuff on his computer and showing us all on the screen. I feel there's value in, because where the contractors' offices are, one of them could be put out on that little car park at the side, and we could have days when you people could go through and have a look and see, because I see things better than reading them, and I can say, oh, there's a, that's what they're building, one of those, and these things, it's four massive, might be 5 massive swimming pools, 6 metres big, with a whole lot of flat fans blowing untold, some of the pipes are 1.4 metres diameter, untold air into what I call sunflowers all on the bottom of the pond. It's just putting fizzy, foamy air, because that's how they get the oxygen and the yeah. So I think there's a lot of merit in to be able to, don't overwhelm them, but be able to go in on Saturdays or something like that for a couple of hours and then see the stuff on the wall and say, this is the point where you can look out the window and you can see where they're up to, because it's easier to see it in my view.
Apologies, Mayor, I know I've had a question just on that point. Would it be worthwhile then creating a digital twin of the site? So rather than having induct every member of the community come visit the site, you create a digital version of it where you can have a 3D model of the whole entire site, ponds, levels, the whole thing, and then people can see what's being built, plus they can see the accurate levels of detail as to what chemicals going in and everything.
As far as the design of the new bit goes, he's more or less got that now, you can go right around and build it.
But you'll have an as built of the existing ones because you have to do models for the taking down the old buildings.
Because then everyone can look at it.
Yeah, I know I talked to Yanni before about creating a digital twin for the whole city.
So we've come to the how about 6? We can go for a little bit longer, but I'm wanting to see if anybody who hasn't asked a question already, who lives in the border east, has any questions. Ma'am, you haven't had a question before?
I have a question that will be slightly before.
Okay.
It's just about the construction. But is there going to be any type of like enforcement or monitoring of heavy trucks pulling through here? Because as it is now, obviously that's already a bit of a problem, but when they're lugging in all the stuff to start building, is there any going to like any watching or enforcing or cameras put up all these trucks that come rolling down here at 80, 90 k an hour because it's an industrial area?
Are you talking about Mason's Road in particular?
Mason's Road, yeah, this whole road, like, and it affects not just the people on the actual road, it's down. So I'm just like wondering before that even becomes a problem as well.
When I went to talk to this guy the other day, very roughly speaking, there's 12,000 metres of, I wouldn't say contaminated sand that's going to be dug out. This is how it's going to work. Dig out 12,000 metres, it's already low in a few places. Dig out 12,000 metres, take away, slam all the 1,400 files in, and then bring in roughly 8,000 metres of gravel in layers. Then after that, it'll be just concrete trucks coming in or steel trucks coming in. That'll be the end of the massive movements of stuff. So that's better. And of course, it's all very well saying a heavy truck out, any truck's heavy, but they're not allowed to be overweight for what they're allowed on the road. So there'll be no figure. The frequency might be more, I don't agree with you there, but the frequency might be more, but they won't be overweight and damaging the road.
Yeah, but is there going to be enforcement issues with to make sure it comes down at
So we-
appropriate speed?
Can we-
So,
yeah. We're not going to be able to answer that comprehensively.
We can.
Okay.
Yeah, we will be monitoring. On the site, there's a lot of monitoring, like vibration sensors, dust sensors, but also the traffic movements. The team will be monitoring those, and I will check with the contractor to see what sense they have in the trucks. A lot of contractors these days have speed recording, etc. So we'll speak to them and see if they have that.
Is there like a curfew on the?
Yeah, there is time limits on when we're working. Yeah, they're quite strict. Yeah.
So we're over time now, so I know there's a couple of hands out at the moment, but I'm not going to take questions because we need to respect everybody's time. We said we finish at 6:30. So if you do have questions that you want asked, please, again, sorry to point to Gary again, but please go to Gary or come to one of your local elected representatives. Or if you live outside this area, your local councillor. So for all the city councillors who are here, please put your hands up. City councillors, are you here? Yeah. Down your hands, so let's dive in. All right. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming. I'll just close with the cover here.
just going to finish the meeting properly, and then Malcolm can come and talk to us. When here, it's food I've been doing. Your wātia, your mama, nākara, te tinana, te wāgoa, te araka. We're right here on one Friday, I can get on here. Tina. Louis, Talia.
Hey, Wineri.